this building full moon in Pisces in just, hours, really. So let's just talk about this full moon in Pisces for a moment. Not only is it that, it also is sitting right next to Neptune in Pisces. And Neptune is the ruler of Pisces, the modern ruler of Pisces. So we have like a double down, right? We have the full moon in Pisces would be what it would be. Next to Neptune, it brings it even more. So what does it bring more of? Okay. Let's just look at the many faces of Pisces for a moment, because it's a very, very interesting sign. It looks, the way it's written, it looks like two fishes swimming in opposite directions. Now, for anyone who is a Pisces or has strong Pisces in their chart, you may be able to identify that sometimes there's an aimlessness to Pisces, a sense of directionlessness. Because Pisces is really the interest, the urge, the purpose of Pisces is to reveal our spirituality and oneness, to reveal the truth behind this physical 3D world, the world that enervates this world. So Pisces is the last sign of the 12 signs of the zodiac. Pisces is considered an ending sign because it ends the zodiac. And then Aries starts again, the new first sign of Aries after Pisces. So with Pisces, we may be feeling grief, sadness, melancholy, feeling of endings, endings that we wanted and are okay with, but still bring some sense of loss, and endings that were unexpected and that we just need to grieve and be with. So I would say this full moon, I mean, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling, so full. I had a massage this morning and I said one sentence to the massage therapist as to what I needed. And I talked about this wave of grief that I've been experiencing for the last couple of weeks, physical and emotional. And as soon as I said that word grief, it was just like, whoa, it was so big. So I chose to redirect and not think of this. So these are some choices with this full moon, because Neptune is a dissolver. Pisces dissolves. So there could be heartache that Neptune beautifully dissolves. And I love ritual, and I love simple ritual. I used to do more complicated ritual, but I really love simple ritual these days. So one can do a ritual simply with a candle, with a sacred object, outside with a tree, just setting one's intention for what it is, what one is wanting. And we can simply offer our heartache on the altar of Neptune. Now, Neptune is, yes, Neptune is that planet out in the, cosmos, but also Neptune in astrology is considered an aspect of ourselves. Actually, every planet is considered an aspect of ourselves. As above, so below, as without, so within. So we have Neptune, who is a spiritualizer, a dissolver. Neptune, who says, let your cares and worries go. Let go into the oneness. Put on some music. Go into nature. Allow yourself to free your mind with responsibilities, with duties, with the whole 9 yards. And just let your heart and soul be free. Pisces really loves when there's no schedule. I have most of my planets, Leo planets, in the house of Pisces, and I hate schedules. If I see one thing or two things on my schedule for a day, I'm like, okay, that's all right. But if there's more, I'm like, oh no, that's way too much. And it just feels like it needs to be more organic with Pisces. So allow yourself to be directed from within. Pisces is a very internal sign. And let whatever endings, whatever grief, whatever letting go, it's really letting go and surrendering. And, the whole idea of letting go and surrendering, it's kind of curious, right? Because how do we really do it? And I think setting the intention, I wish to let go of this, and opening to, grace. I would say Pisces and Neptune are grace. And we open. Now, a spiritual teacher used to say, make sure your cup, us as a cup, make sure your cup is up, is right side up, right? So that it can receive, we can receive. If our cups are this way, we're not paying attention to the universe that is really wanting to bestow grace. And I know this time for many of us has been very, very difficult in many, many ways. This is an opportunity to find grace and to let go and release, because Neptune and the moon are really facilitating, this beautiful feminine energy just wants us to relax into it. So I was thinking about, how we do this radical self-care that is needed during this time. Pisces and Neptune also amplifies emotions, all sorts of emotions. And there is a square to Mars from both the moon and the sun. So there can be anger. There can be so much frustration. Like, why do I have to do this thing 3 times before it works? Why do we have to keep doing things? I don't know if you're experiencing that, but it's like, it never can be just once. It's got to be twice. And the 3rd time, maybe it happens. And that's the frustration of Mars in Gemini squaring the luminaries, the moon and the sun. How do we work with this? Number 1, radical self-care. This is not a time to be doing a lot, doing too much. It's time to pull it back, time to clear out. If we set intentions 2 weeks ago with the new moon in Virgo, maybe we have better health habits. Maybe we're eating better foods for ourselves. We're following a hypoglycemic diet. If we are hypoglycemic, we're not doing sugar if we have candida or other things. So if we are seeing changes, if we've made those intentions and we're starting to see some of that flowering at this full moon, congratulate yourself. That's really wonderful. I don't want to say to use the moon, to flow.
What's in that big box?
Barbara, can you mute? Thank you.
Sorry.
See, it's just like that. This is just this time. It just is filled with interruptions, difficulties, unexpected, mishigas. And if we can step back, with this T-square, when a planet like Mars right now is squaring both the moon and the sun at 90-degree angles, that's called a T-square. Now, there's an outlet on the opposite end of that T, where that Mars is. And that outlet is in Sagittarius. So how to proceed in a good way so that we don't keep running into, problems or even making problems. One way is to step back. Sagittarius says, look at the big picture, get out of the minutia. We've been in Virgo, Virgo is the minutia. It's the details, it's the precision sign. And Sagittarius says, look at the whole picture. Look at where you're wanting to go. What is your vision? What is your truth? And even more importantly, Where is your wisdom? Connect to your wisdom. Sagittarius at its highest frequency is wisdom, is knowing everything that there is to know, that one needs to know in this moment. So Sagittarius taps us into that universal consciousness and wisdom that is both outside and within. So the recommendation is spiritual practice. With this kind of frustration, old habits can come back, or our present habits can be exacerbated. The last 2 weeks ago, with the new moon in Virgo, Mars was also squaring the moon and sun that were together. Exact. So we have a reoccurrence. Mars is now continuing to square the moon and the sun in a different way, continuing the pressure, continuing. So we look at Mars, and Mars shows us kind of like what our basic instinctual truth is, right? We get angry at something, we say, it shouldn't be that way, because we have a certain gut feeling of what's right for us, what's right to us. Sagittarius lets us know that everybody has their own truth. And there is no, well, is there, I was going to say, and there is no one truth. But that's on, I think, maybe on a different level, there is one truth. At that deeper spiritual level, I think there is. However, on our human, individual, day-to-day, it's each one of us has our own reality, has our own like fabric and truth. So we have to, Sagittarius says, respect other people's truths. Respect other people's reality. And there's a sense of generosity in Sagittarius. The Sagittarius can be self-righteous for sure. But really the best of Sagittarius is live and let live. Actually, I'm interested. What's your religion? What's your practice? What's your belief? Without any judgment. So if we can really practice that kind of a mindset over the next 2 weeks, I think it would be beneficial and it would help. And when we find, I like using words with breath. So when I find myself getting like really tense, or even having like, yelled in my car, for example, by myself, usually that's when I do it. I remind myself, like, oh, wait a minute, breathing in, I calm my body. This is Thich Nhat Hanh. Breathing out, I smile. And I do it, dwelling in this present moment. I know this is a wonderful moment. And it totally stops my mind. It just like interrupts that pattern. And then I'm able to bring it back. And so self-care, radical self-care, there is a deep emotionality, grief, what it feels like to me, and it has to do with partnerships, because Juno is involved. She's the wife archetype, the asteroid Juno. She's right in with the moon and Neptune. And she's also squaring Mars. So we have to watch for arguments with mates and with partners, business partners, any kind of partners, because it's very, very easy to be ticked off, to erupt, to say something that then we really, really, really regret. So that's why I love, one of the reasons why I love astrology is like we're forewarned that this astrological current, that this particular part of the river is rough. It's rough with regard to others, relationships, and it's rough with regard to our own emotions. So radical self-care, learning how to comfort and bring ease into our physical, mental, emotional bodies. And then as we can, as we allow ourselves to relax, breath, words, yoga, people have different spiritual practices, chanting, mantras, saying one word over and over, you know, love, love, love. It seeds. We're seeding our reality, our future. So this is a great time to do that, because old patterns are coming up to be seen, to be expunged, to be rooted out. And then with that Sagittarius, you know, that missing leg of the T-square, and that leg is the fourth leg. So what happens when we inhabit the Sagittarius archetype? Things stabilize. It isn't so topsy-turvy. It isn't so out of balance. So we stabilize by bringing ourselves into a higher, deeper truth that we know, by connecting to our wisdom. And when I was a body worker, a massage therapist, and a Reiki practitioner for years. And, I'm used to putting one hand on my chest, one hand on my belly, and just holding that. And that is a very stabilizing gesture. There are others. I know emotional freedom technique has many different ways of bringing that kind of balance, but simply putting one hand here, and intending, I intend to connect to my wisdom and to relax into grace. I intend to connect to my wisdom and relax into grace. That is what is available if we know how to ride this current. If we don't, then expect hyper emotionality, a lot of tears, anger, maybe some anguish. It's a testy time. Now, both Venus and the sun are in Virgo, and Virgo is it's a meticulous sign. It is, as I said before, it's a precision. It wants precision. It doesn't have a lot of room to it unless it adopts its opposite, Pisces. And then when it embraces Pisces, when Virgo and Pisces come together, then you have like, the spiritual, devotional server, the one who cares for others because they love. It comes from love, not duty, not responsibility, but love. So that's what's possible, bringing that together. I would say do something different and for this full moon. If you can, Uranus is involved. Uranus is playing a part. Uranus likes us to change. So do something that you haven't done before, if possible, or you haven't done in a long time, and allow yourself to break free of routine. Even if you do that once, that'll be very, very helpful. Because again, that moves us out of that more rigid, T-square. That is like, a little hard driving and can be, well, let's talk about another face of Pisces. We're looking at denial, delusion, illusion, deceit, addictions. Because it's a boundarylessness, Pisces, and because it's the most sensitive sign of the zodiac, even more sensitive than Cancer, dear sister Phyllis. It is so super, 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 super sensitive. So we will be super, super, super sensitive. So make sure, recommendation, put ourselves in beautiful, safe, loving environments for the next few days during this full moon cycle. because we are going to be feeling very, very sensitive. We don't want to be where there's lots of noise or people or, not that we're probably doing much of that anyway. But it's more of a time for stillness, meditation, prayer, putting out what it is we want or need, more what we need, right? I'm not much into prayer for what we want. I'm not. I know it's okay. I don't judge it. It's just funny for me. But I feel for what we need. And that prayer is so powerful. And I will just share with you my love of Tara. She is a Tibetan Buddhist. She is the mother. She is considered the mother of all Buddhas. And that's because she awakened in a female body for the first time ever, because only men could do it apparently back then. And she said, oh no, I'll just keep reincarnating as a female until I become awakened to show that that's just not true. And she did. So she shows that all women can be awakened just as well as men, and maybe even more well, maybe even weller, but no judgment on that either. So Tara is considered the rescuer and the savioress. And when she became enlightened, her prayer was that whoever needs help, whoever they are, wherever they are, whatever they identify as, religious, non-religious, even if you don't know much about Tara, if you don't really know much about Buddhism, it doesn't matter. She is non-denominational. She just says, call on me and I will be there. I will rescue you and save you from those moments when we need saving. And she never fails. I will tell you, she never fails. And I've been calling on her a lot these last couple of weeks. And it's a wild thing. Like when I call, so the recommendation, if you feel inclined to just experiment with it, when you start to feel a little anxiety, a little something, whatever is going on, just stop and call. Just Tara, help. That's it. And just notice what happens. And then you have your own, report, your own experience, and then you can continue it if it works, if it feels right. But for me, when I call, I feel a physical release and relief. I feel like everything just opens up, and there's grace, and I'm able to make another choice. I'm not stuck. And especially when we feel like we're going down the rabbit hole, with this full moon, there can be that. If we have a trauma point that we touch, that is such a deep, it's like endless grief. There is a quality to grief that feels endless. So I caution everyone that make space for grief, but not too much. Make enough, but not too much. Otherwise, we could find ourselves like there, for days. And this full moon is offering something else as well. It's offering us an ability to know our deeper, truer, divine Buddha nature, our true nature. And the best way I can think of to know that, in my experience, is to allow ourselves to get still, to really listen. So however that is, if music brings you stillness, some people get still running. If running brings you stillness, meditation, breathing, what your practice, make up something new that brings a stillness. And in that, there can be an experience that is so lovely and like kind of an awakening, not only lovely because Uranus is involved, an actual awakening, like like, wow, so this is who I am. Wow, like a realization that we haven't had before. And with Virgo, with the sun in Virgo, it isn't a momentary passing thing. It actually gets anchored in our bodies. Virgo, our bodies. So stay with the body, care for the body, really extra care, extra love, extra attention. It's so deep. It's so beautiful. Pay attention to dreams. It's potentially so deep and beautiful. It's potentially completely confusing and where we're subject to lies and where we ourselves may lie. There's a kind of a energy of slipperiness. And that is going to continue, believe it or not, for about 3.5 months as Mars squares Neptune. Mars is slowing down in Gemini. He's going to station to go retrograde, late Gemini, and come back to early Gemini, the whole while staying in proximity to Neptune. Mars square Neptune. It is one of those, in astrology, there's all sorts of astrologers. There's astrologers who will tell you very good news and not want to talk about the bad. There's other astrologers who will make it all about there's malefic Scorpio Saturn in your chart. It's like, oh dear. So I try to find a middle path, even though I tend to go on the positive side. So I have to bring myself back and be real, because Mars square Neptune, especially Mars in Gemini, the sign of talking, of communication, of speech, squaring Neptune, the planet of boundarylessness, of spirituality, addictions, illusion, delusion, oneness, compassion, love. I mean, forget about it. Pisces is really all over the chart. It really is. You don't rein in Pisces. So that's why we need to be mindful of this energy that is at an apex kind of point now. And if we direct it inward and we use it, that energy is so powerful. It just moves mountains within. It also can move mountains without. So we want to keep our cool, our presence, self-care, water. I recommend baths, being near water, listening to water. Pisces, beautiful water sign, more ether, but still considered water. So this Mars Neptune for the next 3.5 months. This is a toughie. This is considered a malefic aspect, and we're all going to be under it. So what do we have to really pay attention? What does Neptune do to Mars when it squares? Squares is a tough aspect. That's a tension. Actually, Neptune makes Mars impractical. All of a sudden, Mars doesn't know what he's doing. He's listening to this jerk and believing them and giving them $20,000 for nothing. For nothing. I tell you, I know many people who have done that. And they're waiting for the windfall. And I look at their charts and they have Mars square Neptune. I'm like, oh my gosh, oh dear, oh dear. So just be mindful that during this aspect, there's an impracticality. And there can also be an obsession to find the easy way out, right? Because it's not going to be easy to find answers. Mars is how we do, right? Venus is what we want, and Mars is how we get what we want. Well, Mars squares Neptune, he loses his way. He gets confused. He believes things that are not believable. He just is not dependable, reliable. So, what to do about this? This can be a self-destructive aspect. And we can also lie to ourselves, right? We can be lied to. We can lie to others. Deceit, delusion, conspiracy theories. I mean, this is all prominent during this time. We may see more of that before the election. So we need to prepare ourselves for this kind of like fog of war thing, you know? There could be like something that tries to get our attention, but really isn't what's important. So inward is what's important now. Mercury is going retrograde. Like any moment now, we're feeling it. Mercury in Libra, almost 9 degrees Libra, stationing retrograde for 3 weeks. Okay, nothing to worry about here. However, with this Mars square Neptune, we just, again, need to mind our own mind. This is the time to pay attention to our thinking and what we're listening to, what we're believing, what we're giving energy to. Because we have to discriminate. That our discriminating wisdom is kind of like a little like off. So in order to counter this, I just wrote down a few counters to this because I don't want to leave you with like, oh, Madonna mia, this is a rough, where can I go for 3.5 months? A cave, perhaps. And that's actually not a bad idea, because one of the antidotes and necessities for this square, Mars square Neptune, in order not to be hurt by it or to hurt others, it's important to have a spiritual practice, to focus ourselves on the inward wisdom and truth. Number one. Number two, if we have devotion to impeccable ethics and honesty, Neptune can make things like a little like wiggly. And it's like, no, I'm going to be honest here. I'm going to be impeccable with how I am. So adherence to impeccability, to honesty and ethics will also help guide us through these rapids, these really rough waters. The thing about rough waters is it carries a lot of energy. And what I was saying with the internal focus, the prayer, the devotion, the practice, tremendous gain can be made now. And the last thing is what I'm calling radical self-care. Going slower. The North Node is still in Taurus. Uranus is still in Taurus. So going slower, keeping it simple, having our diet support our bodies simple, keeping our schedule nourishing, simple and nourishing. I don't know how many people can have busy schedules and feel it's nourishing. Maybe for a while we can, but then not. So less is more during this time, focusing on our own values, truth, wisdom. That's our anchor. That's our orientation. It isn't in the world. It isn't on what's going on. You know, try not to pay too much. It's like the, Great Oz, well, try not to pay too much attention to that man in the booth there. It's like that. I think we're going to feel like some kind of oh, this now, who knows, another pox might be announced. But don't be dissuaded, put off our path. The path will get us through, and not only get us through, will deepen our own commitment and our own realization as to who we are. So it's really a beautiful time, and it's a bit treacherous, both. And that's Pisces. Pisces is Mother Teresa. Pisces is the drunk in the street. The best of the best, the worst of the worst, right? So that's the energies we're dealing with on a very large scale as we head into this full moon. One other thing I wanted to say, where are we going? Oh, yes, Mars is going retrograde at the end of October. Mars retrograde, again, feeling thwarted, frustrated. So get used to it. You know, our Tibetan Lama used to say, you know, he really wanted us to do our spiritual practice as much as possible. And he would advise us to not have too many projects. He'd say less projects, better. Less things you have to do, better. And that's what I say at this time, because things are going to be fraught. And because things are going to be fraught with Mercury retrograde, not to be afraid, but yes, things do go awry. Electronics and communication, so double check things, that's okay. Just double check. When you communicate with people, make sure they understand. But Mercury retrograde, the next 3 weeks is really about redoing, revising, and reassessing what we've done and completing what it is that's important. We want to complete in the next 3 weeks. And then when Mercury stations to go direct, we can think about, you know, starting something anew. But this is really revise, redo, review what you've done and complete what you can to set you, you know, forward for the next. And it's in Libra. Libra is the sign of relationship. So we're going to review our relationships. We're also going to review our relationships with ourselves. And again, the ultimate with Libra for me is the inner marriage. You know, the marriage of between spirit and, you know, whatever and the spirit and matter, that inner marriage of the feminine and masculine, spirit, matter. So during this time, we got to take care of relationship stuff. We just do. So let's not, you know, let's not make, it's just going to be there. I had to do taxes with my husband yesterday instead of just, you know, fighting. And I'm like, let me help, honey. So a positive attitude is helpful. But there will be a need to balance relationship needs with our own personal needs. There's a seesaw because Mercury in Libra is opposed Jupiter in Aries. Jupiter in Aries is the part of us that wants to do our own thing, that wants to be free, that wants to, you know, go here and go there and not be hemmed in by any relationship. So watch that urge for, you know, a lot of want our own freedom, and then the need to also handle what needs to be handled with in relationship. And if we can set our sail, you know, right now to balancing that, then we won't feel as frustrated, you know, when maybe on a certain day, the relationship needs are more important, even though we have our own designs in mind. And we can kind of bend, right? Bend. This is a bendable time. These are mutable signs. Thank goodness this T-square, Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, all mutable signs. So there's a, you know, okay, we can be flexible here. We can adapt. We can change without a big huff and a puff. So that's good too. And it will be rewarded. Know that kindnesses extended to others during this time, because it's going to be such a, you know, wanting to focus on self and one's own life. Kindnesses with others will be rewarded beautifully. It just has a special sweetness to it to be able to extend, even when we don't feel like we want to. The other night I was tired, but I know my husband loves home cooked meals, so I made a beautiful, meal, and he was so grateful. And it came back in more than what I what I put into it. It seemed to come back even more, that kind of thing. So there's a fruit to be had during this time. This is a full moon, so we should be noticing certain ripenings in our life. In Pisces, it could have to do with creative projects. It could have to do with healing, something from the past. Pisces, all water signs bring us into the past. People, things may show up from the past. Don't be surprised. Feelings may show up from the past that need to be resolved. And let it, it's like whoosh, you can let go when you can, and then come back into Sagittarius when we need to. We don't want to go down that rabbit hole. I would even schedule like 10 minutes if like a big cry is coming, because we can cry enough in 10 minutes, we can get a lot out in 10, I think, or 20 or whatever you need, really. But there's a permission also that's required in order for us to grieve, for us to know our needs, for us to recognize our needs, validate our needs, and actually meet them. So let's give permission. Pisces is the most loving, the most extraordinary state of being. That's really what it is. So we have that opportunity.